Hey, hi, hello. Welcome to Diana Emerson. Today we're listening to Murder on a Winter's Night.
The Ohio State University as much as anything. Due to that growing concern for safety after an Ohio State University student is kidnapped and killed within minutes after leaving her job.
It's a parent's worst nightmare. Watching the video of her leaving, it almost gives you chills. This is the last time that anyone who knows her, cares about her, is going to see her alive.
Picture her drive into a Chase Bank and go to the ATM machine, try to withdraw cash out of the ATM.
We don't often see crimes on video, so you're seeing it happen.
He told her to get out of the car, take off her clothes, and then shoots her in the temple. It's an execution, there's no doubt about that. They found a couple cigarettes in the car. And BCI basically shut down their lab for us. And they did DNA on the cigarettes.
What's he go by? What name does he go by? DJ. DJ? Yeah, bro. That is the first time I've ever seen somebody get their mom alive, dude.
They found the gun in Storm City.
We don't often get murder weapons, so to get a murder weapon is a pretty big deal.
I was able to conclude the 2 bullets that were submitted were fired from this revolver.
I'm standing before you now, asking each of you to put pen to paper and return a verdict of death.
This is what he's going to tell you. They're coming to have a gun situation.
And I grabbed the gun.
Trying to find the first place to put body.
No, sir.
The only thing they could do was kill him.
Do you want to say anything?
We the jury and find the defendant.
Hello, 911. Yeah, I think there's a body down here at Scioto Grove Metro Park. I don't know if this is a fake or what. I can't really get close to it. It's a really freaking amateur event. Somebody. Okay. Is there any clothing? Can you see from where you're standing? No, it's huge. It's huge. It's bloody. It's got arm over his face. I'm trying to hear it. I can't tell if it's fake or what, man. It's about daylight. Okay, can you tell if it's male or female or anything like that? It's a female. I don't know if that's real, man. Okay, don't get close to it. I'm scared to death of it. Just stay out of it because it'll be a crime scene if it's right. God almighty, I hope that's a dummy.
The detective bureau responded, and we were able to determine that it was a female in her 20s that was navy clothes on and was laying in the field with 2 apparent gunshot wounds to her head. It was very strange. That's not something that we typically run across in Grove City, Ohio. It was a shock for everyone involved that day. Probably about an hour or so into the investigation, we received notification that Columbus police were in the process of taking a missing person report.
Here's the latest. A body found in Scioto Grove Metro Parks has been identified as missing Ohio State University student Reagan Tokes.
Well, it's a parent's worst nightmare. We knew something was definitely very, very wrong, and we couldn't reach her. And that evening is when we got the most horrific phone call that a parent could ever receive.
She loved the Ohio State University as much as anything. Reagan wouldn't even apply to other colleges.
She was a psychology major. She was getting ready to graduate. And so her plan after graduating was to continue on, and that was the field that she was going into.
She had a great time her 4 years here until that fateful night. To that growing concern for safety after an Ohio State University student is kidnapped and killed within minutes after leaving her job.
It scares me to go out alone now. Are they going to take me? Like how they took her? You don't know.
It definitely sent shockwaves throughout the community because I think a lot of people could imagine that being their daughter, their sister, their granddaughter, their friend.
Reagan Tokes was last seen leaving work in a restaurant in downtown Columbus, Bodega.
Watching the video of her leaving, it almost gives you chills. This is the last time that anyone who knows her, cares about her, is going to see her alive.
No one suspicious. No one got up and immediately followed her out. You didn't see anybody in the windows on the street start to follow her or anything at that time.
You're walking someplace, you're just trying to get there safely, and I think he took her totally by surprise.
So once he abducts Reagan, he makes her drive the vehicle while he has a gun in the passenger seat. He makes her drive him to a Chase Bank and go through an ATM machine and try to withdraw cash out of the ATM. She is unsuccessful and does not get any cash out. He then forces her to drive to another ATM machine at Huntington Bank to try to withdraw, which she is unable to as well.
You could make out a figure that appeared to be her, and there was clearly a passenger in the car, but that's about all you could see was a shade. Couldn't identify any features or anything like that. We don't often see crimes on video until you're seeing it happen.
The car stops in this alley, this dark alley, and they're there for about 12 minutes. That's when he's actually raping her.
After they leave the alley, he makes her drive him back to the same Chase ATM. She's able to successfully get, I believe, $60 out of the ATM. After they leave the ATM, they go get gas at a gas station. The video at the gas station is not that great. It's very pixelated. It was raining and snowy that night, and they parked at the furthest pump away.
I think that there's a time where I think she could have taken off for sure, but I don't know where he is. I don't know if he's got the gun pointed at her. I'm sure he's told her, if you do as I tell you, I'm going to let you go. Don't worry, I'm never going to hurt you. And as a victim, you probably want to believe that.
Once they get gas, they leave the gas station and they head down to the Metro Park area.
It's cold February night, it's dark.
What we believe happened is that he told her to get out of the car, take off her clothes, and keep walking.
I think she thought she was still going to live. He's releasing her. Run, go.
But he got out of the car, falls her, and shoots her in the back of the head. I think he walks up to her, puts a gun to her temple, and makes sure she's dead.
He marched her to her death.
It's an execution, there's no doubt about that.
The first break in the case came thanks to a license plate reader connected to a police database that spotted Reagan's car.
They could see that there was scorch marks on the front seat, like somebody tried to burn it.
They found a couple of cigarettes in the car. And we had Detective Forney call her family and friends.
We said, hey, does Reagan smoke? And they said, no, she doesn't even allow anybody to smoke inside her car. So we immediately shipped that cigarette butt off to Ohio BCI to have it tested for any DNA.
We asked them to do a rush on the cigarettes, and BCI basically shut down the lab for us, and they did DNA on the cigarettes.
Then there's a gas can in the trunk, so they start investigating, where did this gas can come from?
And we ended up at the Speedway gas station, where that exact gas can was sold.
And there he was, about a half hour after police believed Reagan had been killed.
There's a video of him engaging in that transaction at the gas station, having a plan later to set the car on fire, destroying that as evidence, and that was a very key thing in the case.
Even before we had the DNA, we had the video at the Speedway.
And then, a short time later, the crime lab called with the DNA results.
I mean, it was within hours, which is truly tremendous.
Good morning, everyone. Late last night, I received a call from the lead BCI forensic scientist with a match on items in the car with a registered sex offender. His name is Brian Lee Goldsby.
It was the same person seen on the gas station video, but he would offer a much different version of what happened that night.
Family and friends are gathered at Maumee United Methodist Church to honor the life of the Ohio State senior who died a week ago.
This, of course, is going to be a very tough day for everyone who knew her.
We certainly never, ever would have dreamed in our worst nightmares that this would happen to our family. When you just try to do the right thing and live a simple, humble, private life, you just don't expect things like this.
It was surreal. It made absolutely no sense that somebody would hurt her because everybody loved her, and we frankly were in a state of shock.
Brian Goldsby was taken into custody without incident by Grove City Police.
Goldsby was on probation for another attempted rape and robbery. He had a long criminal record going all the way back to when he was a juvenile. He was a sex offender.
We found out that my office had handled a case of his, 6 years before.
A remarkably similar case in which Goldsby had abducted a woman, forced her to take out money from an ATM machine, and then raped her, but let her go. Prosecutors offered him a plea bargain, and he served 6 years in prison.
Pulled the file, called the prosecutor who had done the case, tried to have him explain why on a rape case he only got 6 years. He explained to us that the victim didn't want to go through testimony, and that's why we cut the deal.
He was in the system. They had a file on him. He had been released the previous November. He was a previously convicted violent offender that was wearing an ankle monitor, who basically was roaming about Columbus, unchecked, unmonitored. He should have never crossed paths with my daughter.
He would stay out past curfew. He was going places where he probably should not have been going.
It's unacceptable. One would think that there is an immediate alert that goes off and an officer is sent to investigate and find out what the situation is.
But what we found was that no one was really closely tracking his whereabouts. There weren't guardrails put into place to ensure where he was going or that he wouldn't reoffend, because his previous conviction was for a violent crime.
The night that he killed Reagan, he did get on the Coda bus system and getting on the bus and then getting off in the area where the GPS then picks him up and starts to follow him as he just aimlessly walks around.
We could track his movements the whole night, which was pretty chilling, actually. We had the surveillance video from the ATMs, from the gas station.
And then to the park where Reagan was killed. And finally to Goldsby's girlfriend's house, where police discovered the black Kate Spade purse that belonged to Reagan.
The ankle monitor gave us really great evidence.
Goldsby was even wearing the ankle monitor when he was arrested.
It's old. We know what happened. We know why it happened. And we want to believe. I want you to be right. Well, that's what the cooperation is, man. I honestly said, you said I'll give him some. You give me some. I haven't done nothing. I gave him a little bit so far. Cigarettes and all sorts of.
It was difficult. He did not want to provide very much information, and he would only confirm information once you called him out on it.
Tell me about the girl. Tell me about why you let me go. She invited you in the car. No. Don't need. I'll say everything about that.
They're into the car. Yeah. And you look at the face bank. Those two change jobs in the bank. Right? And they change on there as well. Very much. I think it's $60. Yeah. $60. What was her reaction when you got in the car? Was she scared, nervous, upset? Did she like you? Did she think you were nice? Did you treat her right? Okay, and you told her you wanted what?
He did eventually admit that he had been with Reagan that night. He tried to make statements that protected himself. He wasn't that culpable.
You have to take clothes off. No. She takes them off then or something. I didn't have her do it. I didn't have to take clothes off. I did not have her take clothes off. Was somebody with you? No. I didn't have to take clothes off. Right. You didn't need to do this. Things got out of control. You paid it. I get it. I understand. You're not a bad dude, man. There's all this stuff you're doing something that's going on. Things just get out of control. What is out of control? Out of control means you gotta take the clothes off. Right? Fine. You did it. No. Listen, I just told you. I get it. We understand. Obviously, you so bright, you still have a choice if it's over. Just a her. It's just a her. You know what I know. Exactly. What is this accident you talk about? I don't know what accident. You shot. I didn't shoot nobody, man. Man, listen, man, I didn't shoot nobody, man. I didn't do nothing with that. I didn't shoot nobody. Why are you not telling us that part of the story? Because I didn't shoot anybody. When's the last time you shot him? I never shot him. Never. So you left her out, right? And she is found naked to death the next day. Right? You leave. It's freezing cold. Listen. It's freezing cold out. So let's go on with your story. Alright? You let her out. It's freezing cold out. You leave. Then what you're telling me, what's she gonna do?
After talking to him for several hours, we knew that he was not going to be 100% truthful with us. We left the room for a short break and to give him a break as well.
They returned with a plan to get the truth.
Just for two double cheeseburgers is what he wanted.
Criminals never surprise me. Some come in and think they're smarter than us. I don't disrespect y'all. None of that. You know, I respect what y'all do behind the job for society. I didn't feel this.
If he's not going to admit to doing this, then maybe he will admit to being there, but someone else being involved. So we interjected a possible storyline for him to use at that point.
If there's a second dude, now's the time to tell me. Even if you don't want to tell me the name, I need to know if there's a second dude in the car.
He bought into that right away, and when he knew that we had a lot of information putting him in the locations, then he started saying, well, okay, I was there, but this person that I knew from middle school was threatening my family.
So did he claim to go up and get a girl? Whose idea was it to go get the girl? Was it too specific to get money? Yeah. How much money did he expect? He told me he needed $2,000. Okay.
Then he would give us a little bit more information, and a little bit more information.
What's he go by? What name does he go by?
black guy, tall, skinny, fat, brown. He ain't fat. He's like, I really gotta get, he's about 5'11", 6 foot, roughly like 210, 220 at the most.
His name was TJ, and he made me do it. He made me rob her. He made me rape her, and he killed her.
He said, all I want to do is live my life. She's cool. She's hustling. He told the bitch, she ain't seen nothing for the whole rest of the car ride. Get in the car, what happened? We got there. He said, you? Yeah. Said they ain't going to me. I'm like, what's up? He said, you take off all your clothes. I'm like, well, what is she doing, bro? He said, well, let her go. He calls her. Get behind her. She had her head up. He shoots her back in the head the first time. Just pause. When you shot her again, when she let her gun, you shot her in the side of yeah, bro. This is the first time I've ever seen somebody get killed, bro. Life, dude.
I mean, it's not unheard of to have a second person involved that we didn't know about. Is there a TJ?
We saturated the area where he said that this TJ person hung out, and nobody could come up with anyone even close to TJ.
TJ was complete fiction.
His level of detail and what we knew matched up perfectly and exactly. So we knew that we had the right person. But we still needed to find the gun. Occasionally he would ask for a cigarette break. So we would take him out into our Sally Port, which is a garage area. He asked for 2 burgers from a restaurant. 2 double cheeseburgers is what he wanted. And as soon as he had the hamburgers, he told us where the gun was located at. They found the gun in a storm sewer. They were able to throw a magnet down and pull back a little bit, and there it was. Matched up perfectly.
We don't often get murder weapons, so to get a murder weapon is a pretty big deal.
Goldsby was charged with aggravated murder, kidnapping, rape, and robbery.
Detectives are reviewing other crimes such as robberies in German Village in southeast Columbus to see if Goldsby could be connected to those.
His ankle monitor showed he was at the scene of at least 6 armed robberies before the murder of Reagan Tooks. The prosecutor decided to seek the death penalty.
Prosecutor said Goldsby is a repeat violent offender and a sexually violent predator, and said his criminal history, not his race, is what makes him eligible for the death penalty.
You're going to have a death sentence in this state or any other state. This is the kind of case that it should be used upon.
We're going live now to Columbus, Ohio for opening statements in the murder trial of Brian Goldsby, accused of rape and execution-style murder of Ohio State University student Reagan Tooks. Goldsby could face the death penalty.
And to have to sit there in that same room with that person who does not even deserve to breathe air was the most awful experience. He is a soulless individual.
He looked at us all the time. But I never could quite figure out what he was thinking. He had no emotion. It was a very, very, very difficult couple weeks.
District Attorney Ronald Bryan wanted the jury to know about Reagan.
21-year-old Ohio State University student from the Toledo area, psychology major who's looking to graduate in May of last year, who never made that graduation because she was executed point blank in the head, the handgun.
Especially since the state was seeking the death penalty, we wanted to make sure the jury knew and understood what a terrible, brutal, horrific crime this was.
He continues to lie and blame this fellow. TJ. He claimed that he was forced to rape her by this mysterious TJ. And we'll play you the series of lies that he told those Grove City detectives trying to cover up his tracks. Thank you for your attention, and we look forward to presenting that evidence to satisfy you with your authority. Thank you.
Goldsby was represented by two public defenders, Diane Menashe and Court Goddardam.
We were up against two very accomplished, phenomenal defense counsel, and they showed it throughout this case from the very beginning.
The presumption of innocence remains with Mr. Goldsby throughout this trial. There will be evidence presented by the state in this trial that we may not contest. We do not have to present any witnesses on our own, and we don't plan to present any at this point in time. We have no burden of proof whatsoever.
They were going to make us prove our case.
The prosecutors played long stretches of the interrogation of Brian Goldsby. His claims about TJ and his description of the last words he heard from Reagan.
He said, all I want to do is live. All I want to do is live.
Right. And there was testimony about the gun recovered from the sewer, linked to the bullets removed from Reagan's body.
And were you able to tell if those fire bullets were fired from that attack?
Yes, I was able to conclude the 2 5 bullets that were submitted were fired from this revolver.
The prosecution may call its next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hannah Shea Jackson.
But the prosecution's strongest witnesses were the women in Brian Goldsby's life who agreed to testify against him.
Is that person here in court today?
Yes.
Could you tell us, for the record, where he's sitting?
He's sitting on the right hand of the court, wearing a white t-shirt.
Okay, for the record, to be the defendant.
That's correct.
She was at first a little uncooperative, but we were able to convince her, hey, this is the right thing to do. And she finally agreed to it.
I have a paper bag here, Ms. Jackson, that in marked for purposes of identification as State's Exhibit I, and going to remove the contents, which is a black purse that says Kate Spade on the side. Does that item look familiar to you?
That's the purse.
The purse Reagan Tokes had with her the night she was murdered, that Goldsby had given to his girlfriend as a gift.
And did he tell you where he got it?
No.
Okay.
On the final day of the state's case, prosecutors brought in two more women who had relationships with Brian Goldsby, starting with the mother of his 6-year-old daughter. She invoked in Ohio law to keep witnesses' faces from being
Will you tell the jury the circumstances of that?
I said, did you rape Reagan? He shook his head like this, started to cry.
Indicating yes for the.
Yes. I asked him if he killed her. He shook his head yes. I dropped the phone and I left the visit.
Was Brittany visiting that same day?
So the next witness was Brittany Stepp.
Nervous?
Yes.
Deep breath for a moment.
Tell us what happened.
Jennifer was visiting Brian, and she had slammed the phone down. I picked the phone up, and I looked at him. I said, "What happened?" And he just looked at me, and he said, "I'm sorry." I said, "Sorry for what?" He said, "I'm sorry, I got scared." I said, "Did you do it?" And he shook his head, "Yes." And I said, "No." I said to him, and said,
Can you show us with your head what he did when you asked him that? For the record, you're nodding your head up and down.
Yes.
And a yes motion.
Yes.
Morning. Reagan Tokes went through everyone. She was kidnapped. She was robbed. She was raped. She was. So for every murder, you need prior calculation and design, cause, and death. Why are you shooting her twice? You don't have. He knew exactly what he was going to do, and that's prior calculation and design. So afterwards, hear about this TJ guy, right? TJ. Ask yourself, those statements about TJ make any sense at all? TJ does not the defendant. There's only one verdict that you can return on this case, and that's guilty of everything.
May begin your closing when you're ready.
The state would have you believe that this guy is capable of prior calculation and design. And with all due respect to Mr. Goldie, if Mr. Goldie were that smart, he wouldn't have been wearing a GPS monitor while he's committing crimes. It doesn't make sense. He is not capable of prior calculation.
I'm a good attorney, and she stood up in her closing and said, look, I'm going to let you know we'll see what they done.
We have done nothing to present to you a theory of teaching because Brian is teaching. Let's just take teaching out of it.
I'll never forget it. It was pretty good. It was a good move by her. You know, when you give up something like that, if anything, it makes the defense more credible. I think it was a good move to kind of take away something like that. Rebuttal. And then as she started off talking about that argument is absurd. He's not smart. He's smart enough to plan. He's smart enough to know that if Reagan took Liz, she's going to come to her, point to him and say, that's the man who raped him. That's the man who robbed him. He's smart enough for that. Jury reached a unanimous verdict on all counts. You would hand the verdict forms to the bailiff, please. Verdict. We, the jury in this case, being duly empaneled and sworn, find the defendant almost catatonic, didn't see any emotion, didn't really move a lot, expressions. He looked pathetic more than anything else. Only thing that really was of any debate was whether he was going to get to live or whether he deserved the same fate that he did to Reagan. That was the only debate in that court.
Then the hard part for us begins because the penalty phase is all about the defendant. And essentially, how does the person that's sitting before the jury get there? So it's the defense's turn to point out, this is how Brian Lee Goldsby came to sit in front of you.
And so I want to talk about Brian's story. And I know throughout the several weeks of trial, he was always referred to as either Mr. Goldsby or sometimes people said Mr. Goolsby. But it's Brian. He is a human being. He has a pulse. He eats. He walks. He sits next to me at the counsel table.
The defense hired a psychologist, Howard Franklin, who met with him to document the traumas he said he suffered as a child.
That he'd said that he was engaging in these many behaviors to cause pain to people like the pain that he had experienced. That's what he reported. So they included physical violence, sexual abuse at the age of 12 by his father as well as his mother's. His parents were separated and hated one another. Drug and alcohol dependent mother and an alcoholic grandmother lived with him. A mother with several mental illnesses, victim of bullying, and a victim of gang violence. These are all very serious types of trauma.
Many people who have those problems in their lives, in their upbringing, do not go out and commit the kind of crimes we have here in this courtroom. Correct, Doctor?
What I'm questioning is the kind of treatment he was getting, and the failure of the system, the failure of the treatment folks to help him understand why he was having so many.
Let me get this right. You're saying that if he had the treatment program with this record, if you have record, he would have responded and not continued to commit these crimes?
I believe that's a very good possibility.
And now the defense played its last card. Brian Goldsby would speak to the jury.
In our capital cases, the defendant has the right to make an unsworn statement, which means we don't get to cross-examine them. And he doesn't have to take an oath saying, I'm going to tell the truth.
Today, I would like to apologize to the Tokes family for the crimes I committed against his daughter, friends, and family. When I first got locked up, I lied about everything. Said it was TJ, there is no TJ. TJ is not real. I made a TJ up. I went my way. I committed. But the only other thing I have to say is, please have mercy on me. I'd like to say.
I think that he wanted mercy for himself, and that was, mercy that he hadn't shown right now.
Talk with a systemic failure. Ask yourself, is there anything at all about the fact that he kidnapped, robbed, raped, and murdered Raymond Tubbs? The state will submit to you that there is nothing, not zilch, mitigating circumstances. Standing before you now, asking each of you for pen and paper and return a verdict of death. Thank you very much.
Brian Goldsby had every reason not to stand in front of you and say what he did. You know, I went back in that holding tank afterwards and I told Brian, I am so effing proud of you. I know that Mr. Lowe asked you to kill Brian. I'm not going to ask, I'm going to beg. And it's not something I do often. I beg, do not kill him. Thank you.
The family very much wanted the result of death penalty, and you want to bring some solace, some small measure of comfort.
We understand that Judge Mark Sarek is in the courtroom. We are going to be waiting for the jurors to be seated, and we are going to be awaiting their recommendation for the sentence.
We, the jury, deadlocked and unable to agree on whether the aggravating circumstances outweigh the mitigating factors beyond a reasonable doubt. Hereby, the following life sentence of count 1. Life imprisonment without parole, signed by all 12 jurors.
Jurors told us afterwards the decision was intense.
It was tough. 8 of us was for the death, and 2 of the jurors, they were for life, and then 2 of them was just even. Couldn't discount what he did to her, but at the same time, the system felt great.
A jury spared Brian Goldsby's life today, but couldn't bear hearing emotional words from the victim's family.
Regardless of the outcome of today's verdict, it doesn't bring our daughter back. It doesn't erase the night of terror that we endured. Most importantly, it doesn't change that she wasn't granted her last wish. And to quote our daughter, her last words, I just want to live. We know that Reagan is in heaven and evil has not won. We will take the high road and focus our energy on doing good, just like Reagan was. Her beautiful, bright, vibrant life, she, love and spirit is forever.
You asked for mercy, sir. You
showed none that night. You had a horrible background, but you did have choices. And so your life got spared because of your childhood, and yet Reagan did nothing wrong whatsoever. I find it ironic. And yet she forfeited her life because of your background. You get spared because of your background, and yet she forfeited her life. So at any rate, it's a horrible crime. It's sad all the way around.
He doesn't exist to us. I can tell you, he doesn't exist. He hasn't existed in our world since the day we heard his name. This was about justice for Reagan, and I believe that happened.
Grateful to have all of you here today supporting the rally for Reagan.
One of the most wonderful things out of this is the foundation that we've created in her name, Reagan Delaney Tokes Memorial Foundation. And we've been able to give several $100,000 worth of scholarships away.
And again, thank you so much for the support today. We really appreciate having you here. We're so proud of the work that we're able to do in Reagan's honor and memory. She's with us in our hearts always.
But Reagan's most lasting legacy may be the new laws the parents have lobbied the Ohio legislature to pass, the Reagan-Tokes Act.
There are now consequences, and you can have time added to your sentence if you do not show reform and you have infractions while incarcerated.
Oh no. The law would have kept Brian Goldsby behind bars for another 3 years.
The second phase is getting the ankle monitor program so that it's monitored in real time as it should be. So it's actually doing what it's intended to do, which is being preventative.
Elderly, disabled people, and wheelchairs. And the bus take you to the train.
Reagan's parents and her sister Mackenzie were at the graduation ceremony where their daughter was honored.
Reagan Delaney Tokes, received a degree Bachelor of Arts.
Same way back. Yeah. Within all the stations, they have elevators.
Where would she be today at 20?
I take the elevator.
Would she be that psychologist at the Cleveland Clinic that she dreamed of?
Yeah. Okay. So I take the elevator. I don't love the escalator.
There's always joy that
you know, my tip get full.
She was an amazing person, and we missed her immensely and terribly, but hold her in our hearts
So
every day.
I can get around. Okay, Aunt Diana can get around. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.